This video is where my patrons vote on 6 albums to review that were released over the past few months, which I didn't have a chance to cover. So all of you can ask, how did I miss this? If you would like to have a say in upcoming videos and see them early, please consider supporting Rocked on Patreon. Just $2 a month goes a long way. You can find more information in the video description and info card. First, we have an album I've been wanting to talk about for a few weeks, Imploding The Mirage by The Killers. While many people try to make the argument of The Killers never being able to capture the lightning in a bottle they had with their smash debut Hot Fuss, the truth is that The Killers have been consistent in their output quality for years. Imploding The Mirage, the band's 6th studio album, feels slightly like a continuation of the band's 2017 album Wonderful Wonderful, and I mean that in a good way. As time has gone on, The Killers have embraced the more electronic and digital side of their pop rock vibe, and there are several occasions on Imploding The Mirage where that shines. The percussion, both standard and digital, is striking, and when paired with Flowers' vocals, it makes hooks for days. The opening track, My Own Soul's Warning, is that refreshing upbeat sound that The Killers are capable of delivering almost effortlessly, and Lightning Fields with Katie Lang was a fantastic collaboration that I never would have seen coming. If your experience with The Killers' latest album is only the single Caution that dropped a few months back, I can honestly say there is more on this album worth checking out as soon as possible. And while I said The Killers really embrace the electronic and mixing side of music now, they never overindulge like many other bands of the same kind. There are moments where the piano keys take focus and the simplicity is fantastic. The album is not a front-to-back classic at 10 tracks across 42 minutes. There is a bit of repetition later in the works, with an odd halfway point where Fire in the Bone tries a funk beat that doesn't really work smoothly, but the pros vastly outweigh the cons on Imploding The Mirage. I put Imploding The Mirage on par with Wonderful Wonderful in terms of what it offers as a whole album and how it shows off strong songwriting from Flowers and company. While both albums are different and they may not stack up as much as detractors may say, I can't deny there are great songs on this album, and The Killers still make music that hooks you many years after their debut. Overall, Imploding The Mirage is an invigorating and enlivening album that makes you happy to listen to music. The additional guest artists and the right balance of mixing everything together to sound natural, though very programmed, is impressive. If you haven't given The Killers a chance in a few years, then their latest album is definitely worth giving a chance to remind you why The Killers are fun to hear. Up next is the revived Static X, 20 years after Wisconsin Death Trip in Project Regeneration Volume 1. Back in 2014, when Wayne Static passed, many thought the name Static X passed with him. But lo and behold, in 2019, the founding members minus Wayne regrouped and found a new singer in Zero to not only perform and play Wisconsin Death Trip live at concerts, but also start making new music. Project Regeneration Volume 1, an appropriate title, is part tribute to Wayne and part evolution for the group. The biggest focal point on the new album is going to point to Zero and how he compares to a unique frontman like Wayne Static. After seeing the reborn Static X live last year and hearing this full album, I can say that Zero does Wayne justice and is a worthy fit. Those are hard, new metal style shoes to fill, but Zero fills them. When it gets to the new album at 12 tracks across just under 40 minutes, the album does feel reminiscent of Static X's work in the 2000s for sure. Some of the songs even include Wayne's recorded vocals from years past. The album is chock full of samples and red lines, which has always had a unique belonging in Static X's work. All of the music you hear, including the Regeneration tracks with Wayne's old vocals, which were technically demos back then, just remade into songs now, they have that grit and dance beat that many early Static X fans loved 20 years ago. Songs like Hollow do Wayne justice, and tracks like Accelerate prove Zero belongs with Static X. I won't argue that it doesn't hold a candle to Wisconsin Death Trip or even Machine, but wow, this is both nostalgic and fresh at the same time on the same album. That's difficult to pull off. It's the original band members of Static X pulling together and making this new version of the group work so well, and that shows on Regeneration. It's a good balance of industrial and nu metal, and I admit the sampling goes overboard at times, but anyone that loved Static X back in the day will find something to enjoy here in 2020. I truly feel Wayne would be proud of this as his legacy. Overall, Project Regeneration Volume 1 revels in the rhythm and loops that will make you appreciate when nu metal was a good time. The regenerated Static X may not get the appropriate attention for how it was formed or what the current circumstances are, but they definitely made an album filled with fun music, and it's worth blasting loud. Up next is Violent Allies, the latest from the rock staple 10 Years. One of the bands I'm always requested to cover when they release new music is 10 Years. The group's fan base is still solid. Violent Allies, the 9th studio album from the band, definitely definitely falls in suit to what the group fanbase wants in that mainstream rock style that 10 years has delivered for years. That is the perfect description and sales pitch of what to expect from Violent Allies as well, in that you will get exactly what you expect. A 10 years album similar to many others that have been released over the years. Whether that's what you think is great or nothing of interest at all is a matter of opinion on the group, but it definitely feels like a continuation. At 12 tracks across 37 minutes, the album has strong opening and closing tracks, and also some quick instrumental segments with Planets 3 and 4. There is definitely some merit here, and everything is mixed and produced to a high polish as well. Jesse Hassick tries a few things slightly different in songs like The Unknown, which do work with a different speed and change from the heavily implanted radio rock, but that radio rock style is 10 years bread and butter, and that's what you will find throughout this album. After a few listens, there is not one thing that sticks out as bad or jarring, but there does feel to be plenty of similar sounding tracks. In tone, writing, guitar chords, progression, everything. The band definitely has talent and is putting in efforts, but Violent Allies does suffer from a filler problem in moments. With 10 years, everyone wants that big Fix Me or Wasteland moment to blow everyone out of the water. Once in a blue moon, 10 years knocks it out of the park that way. This time, not so much. That really defines my feelings toward the band as well. Definitely have talent, occasionally make a killer song, but have lots of music in their albums that sounds the same track after track. In Violent Allies, you get that. There are moments with different styles where speed is changed and they do something a little bit different, but 10 Years relies on that cruise control for everything really. They could be doing more. You're waiting for that one big hit, and on this album, it just doesn't come. Overall, Violent Allies succeeds in giving the exact album the fan base wants to the letter. Mainstream rock fans will be satisfied, and while nothing is bad in any way, the album begs for more excitement through hooks or writing. Longtime fans will love it for sure, but I'm not convinced this 2020 album will bring new 10 Years fans to the table. Up next is the 3-vocalist European metal band Amaranthe and their latest, Manifest. Back in 2016, Amaranthe were towing the waters to becoming a touch more approachable to a mainstream audience, and I thought it worked. In 2018, they jumped headfirst into that pool with Helix, and I felt it didn't work at all. With Manifest, the group's 6th studio album, the band brings in a slew of guest musicians and tries to step up their performance and make the album something special. While the 3-vocalist presentation may be jarring to some, there are many times on Manifest where it does work. Almost seamless in specific songs, going from clean to harsh to a different clean. As its standard, Amaranthe doubles down on the fast-changing vocals with blistering guitar riffs and solos serving as connectors in many tracks. At 12 songs across 40 minutes, you get tight production with digital glaze. I mean, a lot of these songs are overproduced. Guitarist Olaf Mork has some impressive licks on the album, and I feel doesn't get enough credit for the work with the band. While the album opens up somewhat interesting and with the group trying to cut loose, it's at the point of Viral and Adrenaline where it really becomes a copy and paste of the same thing Amaranthe has done before. Even some of the guest appearances from members of Battle Beast and Apocalyptica don't add a ton of depth or replay value, and that's a shame. On top of that, there are legitimate facepalm moments. When you get to the song Boom, you really question why you're listening to the album, and it's almost an immediate shutoff moment when you hear the line, "The breakdown goes boom." Amaranthe is better than that. I feel Manifest is a slight step up from Helix, but I can't help but feel that Amaranthe are capable of so much more with the talent involved and the unique lineup they have. The guitar work, the production, it's all well executed, but wow, there is a bad combination of being stuck in their groove and metal cheese, all mixed into the same album. And even with the guest musicians, it doesn't offer much replay value, especially over some of the earlier Amaranthe albums. Overall, Manifest is a competent album showing that the band can still give what the fans want, but doesn't verge much out of their groove to expand or try anything different. Big boom breakdowns and fast-changing vocals fill the runtime, but it's hard to distinguish much from Manifest that hasn't already been offered from Amaranthe in the past. Up next is From Ashes to New, and their 3rd studio album, Panic. With an almost ever-changing lineup, Pennsylvania's rap rock and alternative hybrid From Ashes to New is still trying to roll with the punches and figure out what to grow into. Along the way, the group name has achieved mainstream success and a good fan base. Panic is an attempt at continuing momentum and gaining attention and making a bigger name for themselves. After acquiring singer and guitarist Danny Case, I feel From Ashes to New has been able to step up their game. Case excels on Panic and is the strongest feature on the album. I get that Matt is a big part of the writing of the lyrics and songs, but it's Case that makes everything come alive. He was a big get for this group after many original members left a few years ago. Panic is a short album running 11 songs, just under 36 minutes. This is a lyric and hook-driven album with many songs revolving around long choruses and bars, with backtrack mixes filling in the space. There are occasional guitar and drum notes that spike a bit of interest, but it really is the vocal performances that take the spotlight by intention. I don't love the album by any means, and there is some standard woe is me new metal fare that we've all heard a million times, but there are some tracks that work well, like Blind and the title track, which was a strong single for the group on SiriusXM. It's very by the numbers new metal, but slowly, From Ashes to New is making small improvements from album to album. Not great, but honestly not bad. From Ashes to New is making improvement, and I say that because the group started off horrible, made some lineup changes, and became something. It may not be for me, but I do understand now why people would enjoy this band, especially with Danny Case being a part of it now. Panic shows the group has figured out what they are doing, and even though some of the lyrics are angsty and slightly whiny, there are moments that prove the band has something. Overall, Panic shows how From Ashes to New has nailed down their sound, and while it's not anything spectacular, it definitely hits at certain points and caters to an audience who misses the days where nu metal and rap rock were a hot commodity. The album is tailored to a specific audience, but that audience will be happy with what they are given. And finally, we get to the slightly controversial but definitely noteworthy in one way or another, MachineGunKelly with his latest Ticket to My Downfall. MachineGunKelly is no stranger to polarizing opinions when it comes to his own music and personal vendettas. Eminem made sure to take care of that. But this 2020 foray into pop punk caught many off guard. Tickets to My Downfall, which feels very self-aware and comical when talking about himself, is a true-to-form 15-track pop punk album. Many people have given their thoughts so far on the album and this pivot into a new genre. The man has been working rock and metal festivals as a rap act, so he's been around the music and culture for a while. And in Tickets to My Downfall, he had a significant amount of help and guest appearances to make the album something different, including big assistance in recording and production from Travis Barker. And while MachineGunKelly has earned a massive amount of flack for his behavior and his music career, the big shock is that his pop punk album isn't terrible, as many would predict. Somehow, MGK's voice is coarse and flat at points, but fits in the faster moments of the album, like the title track or Concert for Aliens. It's the support behind him in the songs from the instruments that shine and carry the tracks. The Blink-182 comparisons are going to be obvious due to Barker's involvement, but MachineGunKelly still sounds like he's trying to make his music relatable and open up. Sometimes it gets repetitive, but at other times, the hooks work well. This album is a mess, but somehow the mess is appealing in moments. There is absolute garbage waste of time interludes, and there are legitimate endearing moments at the end of some songs. MachineGunKelly, with help, made an album that suits his gritty lifestyle perfectly. Is the album great? No. It's not even particularly good. But it's definitely not awful, and I can see why people are enjoying MachineGunKelly here. Some of the rhythms are infectious, even if simple, and while MGK's voice is a bit rough, the music behind it at times works with that what he can do, and Travis Barker definitely proved he can spin straw into gold. I would have said Tickets to My Downfall was flat average, especially with the ridiculous interludes, but there are sparks of enjoyment through the album, and some of it's juvenile and really ridiculous, but that adds to the charm of this, and it all feels a little bit lighthearted and sincere at moments. And it's just a mess, and it kind of works at parts. And it is a true pop-punk album, and there are elements that are good about it, but his voice isn't that great on here. I don't know. Overall, Tickets to My Downfall is a serviceable pop-punk album from an artist who is trying his hand at roughly everything he can. It's messy, simplistic, filled with juvenile attitudes, and it all meshes into a perfect storm. MachineGunKelly may appear awful, but this album revels in that. It's not a pop-punk classic, but you could do much worse. And that was a look at 6 albums I missed over the past few months. What did you think of each album? Leave a comment and let everyone know. Big thanks to my patrons and a special thanks to Brandon Barenfeld, Chris Doman, McKenna White, and Dom Smith. You can have a say in upcoming videos and vote on things like How Did I Miss This by supporting Rocked on Patreon. Click the link in the video description for more info. Please subscribe and ring the bell to get notified on upcoming videos. You can check out my concert photography on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.